The crystalline spires of the diplomatic vessel Stellar Horizon pierced the velvet darkness of space, its hull gleaming under the light of an alien sun. Dr. Amara Patel stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the shimmer of distant stars. After 15 years of studying extraterrestrial linguistics, this moment would define her career, humanity's first official contact with the Etherians. The ship's AI chimed softly. Dr. Patel, we're receiving the approach vector from the Etherian vessel. Amara smoothed her midnight blue diplomatic uniform, her hands trembling slightly. The universal translator she'd spent years developing felt heavy in her pocket. Thank you, Arya. Please notify the diplomatic team. Through the vast window, she watched as the Etherian ship emerged from the darkness. Unlike the sleek, metallic design of Earth vessels, their ship resembled an organic crystal formation, pulsing with internal light that shifted through colors she had no names for. Ambassador Richards appeared beside her. Ready to make history, Doctor? As ready as I'll ever be, Amara replied, her voice steadied despite her racing heart. Years of studying their language through intercepted transmissions couldn't fully prepare her for this moment. The docking procedure was a dance of light and precision. As the airlock cycled, Amara found herself holding her breath. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the first Etherians any human had seen in person. They were tall, their bodies seeming to shift between solid and translucent states. Their skin held an opalescent quality, refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. But it was their eyes that captured Amara's attention, great oval orbs that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. The lead Etherian stepped forward, its movements fluid and graceful. Behind it stood another figure, slightly shorter but with markings that seemed to pulse with a deeper intensity. This was Zaran, though Amara didn't know it yet. Amara activated the translator and spoke the traditional Etherian greeting she'd practiced countless times. May our paths cross under peaceful stars. The lead Etherian's skin rippled with bands of blue light, a sign of pleasure, according to their research. But it was the second Etherian whose reaction caught her off guard. Its entire form seemed to illuminate from within, casting prismatic patterns across the deck. Your mastery of our tongue honors us, the lead Etherian responded, its voice carrying harmonic undertones that the translator couldn't quite capture. I am High Emissary Valden. With me is Cultural Attaché Zaran, who will serve as our primary liaison. The second Etherian, Zaran, stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice carried a melody that made Amara's translator hum. Dr. Patel, your reputation precedes you. Your work on interspecies communication is fascinating. Something in the way Zaran's light patterns shifted made Amara's breath catch. There was an intensity to its gaze that went beyond diplomatic interest. The following hours were a whirlwind of formal introductions and ceremonial exchanges. But throughout it all, Amara found her attention drawn to Zaran. The Etherian moved with a grace that seemed almost hypnotic, its crystalline form catching and refracting light in ways that seemed to speak directly to her soul. During a brief recess, Zaran approached her as she reviewed her translation protocols. Your understanding of our language is remarkable, it said, its form shifting to display patterns she'd never seen in their research. But there are nuances that your machines cannot capture. I'd love to learn more, Amara replied, trying to maintain professional composure despite her racing heart. Perhaps you could help me refine the translation matrix? It would be my pleasure, Zaran responded, its surface rippling with what Amara would later learn was joy. Though I must warn you, some concepts in our language are tied to experiences your species may have never encountered. As they worked together, Amara began to notice subtle variations in Zaran's luminescence, patterns that seemed to appear only when they interacted. She found herself fascinated not just by the linguistic challenges, but by the way Zaran's presence made her feel both unsettled and completely at ease. The day concluded with a formal dinner, where humans and Etherians attempted to share a meal despite their vastly different biological needs. Amara sat across from Zaren, watching in fascination as it absorbed light in complex patterns that constituted Etherian feeding. "Tomorrow," Zaren said as the gathering wound down, "would like to show you our archives. There are concepts in our history that might help bridge the gap between our peoples." Amara nodded, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. "I'd like that very much." That night, as she lay in her quarters aboard the stellar horizon, Amara couldn't sleep. Her mind kept returning to the way Zaren's light patterns had danced when their eyes met, to the harmonic undertones in its voice that her translator couldn't quite capture. She was on the cusp of something unprecedented, not just in terms of diplomatic relations, but perhaps in terms of understanding what it truly meant to connect across the vast distances between stars. Little did she know, in that moment, that this was just the beginning of a journey that would change not only her life but the course of human-Etherian relations forever. As she finally drifted off to sleep, the image of Zaren's luminescent form followed her into her dreams, promising adventures and discoveries beyond anything she could imagine. The Etherian archives were unlike anything Amara had imagined. The vast chamber pulsed with living light, its crystalline walls containing millennia of history stored in patterns of luminescence. Zaren guided her through the space, its own bioluminescence creating subtle harmonies with the surrounding glow. "Our history is written in light and resonance," Zaren explained, its form shifting to a deeper azure. "Each pattern tells a story, each frequency carries the memories of generations." Amara watched, mesmerized, as Zaren's crystalline fingers traced patterns in the air, causing cascades of color to ripple through the archive walls. The translator at her throat hummed as it struggled to keep pace with the complex harmonics of Zaren's voice. "It's beautiful," she breathed, then noticed how Zaren's surface rippled at her words. "Did I say something wrong?" "Quite the opposite," Zaren replied, its voice carrying an undertone that made the air seem to vibrate. "Your emotional response, it creates patterns very similar to our own expressions of wonder. I've never seen such synchronicity between our species." Over the next few weeks, their work together became more than just a diplomatic mission. Amara found herself spending hours with Zaren, learning the subtle variations in Etherian communication that no machine could capture. She began to recognize the slight changes in Zaren's luminescence that indicated humor, curiosity, or something deeper she couldn't quite name. The breakthrough came during their study of ancient Etherian poetry. Amara was struggling to understand a particularly complex passage when Zaren placed its crystalline hand near hers on the console. The proximity sent a slight electric tingle through her skin. "These verses speak of connection," Zaren explained, its form glowing with soft, pulsing patterns. "Not just between individuals, but between different forms of existence. Our ancestors believed that consciousness, like light, could resonate across any distance." Like quantum entanglement, Amara mused, watching the play of colors across Zaren's surface. Two particles remaining connected no matter how far apart they are. Zaren's form brightened noticeably. "Yes. Exactly. This is why your species fascinates me, Amara. You understand concepts intuitively that took our people centuries to articulate." The use of her first name sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. Until now, they had maintained formal titles. The shift felt significant, like crossing an invisible boundary. However, not everyone shared their enthusiasm for cross-species understanding. Ambassador Richards called Amara to his office later that day, his expression stern. "Dr. Patel, there are concerns about the amount of time you're spending with the Etherian attaché," he said, sliding a data pad across his desk. "Some members of the diplomatic corps feel you're becoming too close." Amara straightened in her chair. "My work with Zaren has advanced our understanding of Etherian culture by years. The linguistic breakthroughs alone are impressive." "Yes," Richards interrupted. "But we need to maintain professional boundaries. There are already rumors circulating on Earth about the nature of your relationship." "My relationship with Zaren is purely professional," Amara protested, even as she felt her cheeks warm. "We're breaking new ground in interspecies communication. See that it stays that way," Richards warned. "The opposition back home is already using your closeness as propaganda against the Alliance. They're calling it alien manipulation of human emotions." That evening, Amara found Zaren in their usual study room, its form dimmed to a subtle glow. "You're troubled," it said before she could speak. "Your biorhythms are discordant." "How can you tell?" she asked, sinking into her chair. "I've learned to read your patterns, just as you've learned to read mine," Zaren replied, moving closer. "Something has disturbed your usual harmony." Amara explained the situation, watching as Zaren's colors shifted through shades of concern and something that might have been anger. "Some humans fear what they don't understand," she concluded. "They see our work together as a threat." "And what do you see it as?" Zaren asked, its voice carrying harmonics that made her skin tingle. "I see it as the most important thing I've ever done," she answered honestly. "This isn't just about linguistics anymore, is it?" Zaren's form pulsed with a warm, golden light she'd never seen before. "No," it agreed softly. "It hasn't been for some time." They worked late into the night, but something had shifted between them. Every shared glance, every moment their energy fields brushed against each other, carried new meaning. Amara found herself noticing things she'd tried to ignore before, the way Zaren's light patterns became more intense when they were alone, the harmonic resonance in its voice that seemed meant only for her. As she prepared to leave, Zaren spoke again. "Amara, in our culture, there is a concept called resonant souls, beings whose energy patterns naturally align, regardless of their physical form. It's extremely rare, even among our own kind." "What are you saying?" Amara asked, her heart racing. "I'm saying that perhaps those who fear our connection don't understand its true nature," Zaren replied. "Or perhaps they understand it all too well." As Amara lay in bed that night, she could still feel the lingering resonance of Zaren's energy field. She knew she should heed Richard's warning, maintain professional distance, protect the diplomatic mission. But in her heart, she knew it was already too late. Something profound was happening between her and Zaren, something that transcended species and conventional understanding. And somewhere in the vast ship, in quarters filled with living light, Zaren's form pulsed with patterns that spoke of hope, fear, and possibilities that neither of their species had ever dared to imagine. The alert came during what should have been a routine cultural exchange session. Amara was in the archives with Zaren, studying ancient Etherian art forms, when the ship's AI blared to life. "Security breach detected. All diplomatic personnel report to secure stations immediately." Zaren's form flickered with concern, its usual radiant glow dimming to a troubled azure. "Something is wrong. The resonance patterns in the ship's systems are chaotic." Before Amara could respond, her comm unit crackled. "Dr. Patel, report to the Emergency Council chamber immediately." Ambassador Richard's voice was tense. "We have a situation." The council chamber was in chaos when they arrived. Holographic displays showed news feeds from Earth, protests outside Space Administration buildings, crowds holding signs with xenophobic slogans. But it was the central display that made Amara's blood run cold. A human military vessel had just destroyed an unmanned Etherian research station. The Stellar Defense Initiative claims the station was developing biological weapons, Richards explained, his face ashen. "They acted without authorization from Earth's government." High Emissary Valden's form pulsed with patterns of distress. "This is a grave accusation. The station was studying stellar phenomena, nothing more." "We have to do something," Amara interjected, feeling Zaren's energy field ripple with agreement beside her. "If we don't contain this situation, years of diplomatic work will be undone." "It may already be too late," Richards said grimly. "The SDI has gained significant support on Earth. They're claiming that the Etherians are manipulating us, using their alien powers to cloud our judgment. His eyes flickered meaningfully toward Amara and Zaren. "That's absurd," Amara protested, but she felt Zaren withdraw slightly, its luminescence dimming. After the meeting, Zaren led her to a private chamber. Its form was fluctuating rapidly, displaying patterns she'd never seen before. "Amara, perhaps they are right to be concerned." "What do you mean?" "The connection between us, it's unprecedented. Even among my own people, I've never experienced resonance like this. What if it is affecting your judgment?" Amara stepped closer, her heart pounding. "Do you really believe that? Or are you letting their fear influence you?" Zaren's surface rippled with conflicting patterns. "I believe that what we share is real, but I cannot bear the thought that it might harm you or your standing among your people. My people need to learn that different doesn't mean dangerous," Amara said firmly. "The SDI is using our relationship as propaganda, but we can't let them win by pulling apart." Their conversation was interrupted by another alert. The SDI had released documents, heavily edited and taken out of context, suggesting that the Etherian diplomatic mission was a cover for infiltration. Public opinion was turning rapidly, and Earth's government was under pressure to sever diplomatic ties. Over the next few days, the situation deteriorated. More human ships arrived in the sector, their intentions unclear. The Etherian vessel began preparations for emergency departure. The dream of peaceful cooperation was unraveling thread by thread. But Amara noticed something else, subtle patterns in the SDI's communications that didn't quite add up. Working late into the night, she and Zaren began to piece together a disturbing picture. "Look at these transmission signatures," she pointed to a complex data pattern. "They're not just coming from Earth. Someone on this ship is feeding them information." Zaren's form pulsed with revelation. "The attack on our research station, they knew exactly where to strike. They had inside help." As they dug deeper, the conspiracy began to take shape. A network of operatives, embedded in both human and Etherian delegations, working to sabotage the Alliance. But why? The answer came in an encrypted transmission they managed to decode, Project Eclipse proceeding as planned. Once diplomatic relations are severed, both sides will be vulnerable. The harvest can begin. "A third party," Amara whispered, horror dawning. "Someone's playing both sides, pushing us toward conflict." Zaren's form brightened with urgent purpose. "We have to expose this. But it will be dangerous. Those behind this will not want the truth revealed." "I don't care about the danger," Amara said, reaching out to let her hand pass through Zaren's energy field. The resonance between them was stronger than ever. "We can't let them destroy everything we've built. If we do this," Zaren's voice carried harmonics of both fear and determination, "there's no turning back. We'll be targets." Amara smiled, watching the play of light across Zaren's crystalline form. "Maybe this is why we found each other. Not just for ourselves, but for all our people." As they began planning their next move, Amara realized that their relationship had become something more than either of them had imagined, not just a bridge between species, but perhaps the last hope for peace between their worlds. In the darkness of space, other ships were moving into position, their crews unaware that they were all pieces in someone else's game. But in that quiet room, surrounded by the gentle pulse of Etherian light, two beings from different stars had found a truth worth fighting for. The evidence was hidden in plain sight, encoded in the very light patterns of the Etherian archives. Amara and Zaren worked tirelessly, their forms casting shadows across the crystalline walls as they pieced together the true extent of the conspiracy. These energy signatures, Amara pointed to a complex pattern floating in the holographic display. They matched the anomalies we detected near the destroyed research station. Whatever these beings are, they're using technology that affects both standard electronics and Etherian photonic systems. Zaren's form shimmered with intense concentration. The patterns suggest a level of technological advancement beyond both our species. They've been watching us, studying our weaknesses, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their discovery had come at a cost. Strange accidents had begun plaguing the diplomatic mission. Critical systems would mysteriously fail, communications would garble at crucial moments. Someone was trying to stop them, but they couldn't be sure who to trust. Ambassador Richards had become increasingly hostile, his once friendly demeanor replaced with suspicious glances and thinly veiled threats. Dr. Patel, your continued association with the Etherian attaché is becoming a liability, he warned during one tense meeting. Perhaps it's time for you to return to Earth for a consultation. But Amara and Zaren had found something in the archives that changed everything, evidence of an ancient conflict, a war fought eons ago between the Etherians and a species that fed on discord. These beings, called the Void Weavers in Etherian records, didn't just want resources or territory. They fed on the energy released by civilizations in conflict. They're not just pushing us toward war, Amara realized, her heart racing. They're farming us. Creating the perfect conditions for harvest. Zaren's form pulsed with urgent patterns. We need to get this information to both our governments, but the normal channels are compromised. The Void Weavers have agents everywhere. Their chance came during a diplomatic reception meant to be a last attempt at salvaging relations between their species. As the delegation gathered in the grand observation deck, Amara noticed something odd about the star patterns visible through the massive windows. Zaren, she whispered, those aren't stars. The Etherian's form flickered with recognition. Ships. Hundreds of them, hiding in the dark. They're waiting for us to destroy each other. They had minutes to act. While the diplomats exchanged tense pleasantries, Amara and Zaren implemented their desperate plan. They had modified the universal translator, combining it with Etherian light pattern technology to create something new, a way to broadcast truth directly into the consciousness of both species. As Ambassador Richards raised his glass to make what would likely be the final speech before war, Amara activated the device. The observation deck erupted in light and sound, but not chaos. Instead, every being in the room, human and Etherian alike, was suddenly linked in a network of shared understanding. Through the modified translator, they all saw the truth, the manipulation, the ancient enemy waiting in the darkness, and something else. They saw Amara and Zaren's journey, felt the genuine connection between them, understood that their bond wasn't a threat but a promise of what could be. Look, someone shouted, pointing to the windows. The hidden ships were decloaking, their true forms revealing something ancient and terrible. But they had revealed themselves too soon. In that moment of shared consciousness, humans and Etherians did something unprecedented. They acted as one. Defense systems from both ships activated in perfect synchronization, their technologies complementing each other in ways neither species had imagined possible. The Void Weavers hadn't counted on this. They had expected to find two weakened civilizations, ready for harvest. Instead, they found unity. Amara felt Zaren's energy field intertwine with hers as they coordinated the defense. Around them, other humans and Etherians were forming similar connections, their differences becoming strengths rather than divisions. The resonance, Zaren's voice carried wonder even in crisis. It's not just us. The potential was always there, in all of us. As the battle raged outside, something remarkable happened inside the diplomatic vessel. The barriers between species began to dissolve, not in a loss of identity, but in a recognition of shared purpose. Human technology interfaced with Etherian light systems, creating defenses the Void Weavers couldn't penetrate. Ambassador Richards, his earlier suspicion forgotten, worked seamlessly with High Emissary Valvan, their combined experience guiding the joint fleet. The very differences the enemy had tried to exploit became the key to victory. And at the heart of it all, Amara and Zaren stood together, their unique bond showing the way forward. They had discovered that love wasn't just an emotion or a resonance between two beings, it was a force that could bridge the gaps between stars. As the Void Weaver's ships began to retreat, their harvest denied, Amara looked at Zaren's shimmering form and smiled. Think they'll ever try this again? Zaren's surface rippled with patterns of joy and determination. If they do, they'll find something they never expected, two species that have learned to see the light in each other's differences. 1 year after the Void Weaver incident, the stellar horizon had been transformed. What was once a purely human diplomatic vessel now pulsed with Etherian light technology, its corridors alive with the harmonious blend of both civilizations' achievements. Amara stood in the newly constructed resonance chamber, watching human children learning to manipulate light patterns under the guidance of Etherian teachers. Their small hands passed through the crystalline interfaces with natural ease, their minds already adapted to thinking in ways that had once seemed impossible. They learned so quickly, Zaren observed, its form shimmering with pride as it moved to stand beside her. Their neural patterns are already developing resonance capabilities we thought unique to our species. The chamber was just one of countless innovations born from the partnership between their peoples. After the battle, both civilizations had realized that their greatest strength lay not in remaining separate, but in finding ways to grow together. The Stellar Defense Initiative had been disbanded, its conspirators exposed and its legitimate members integrated into a new joint defense force. Ambassador Richards, humbled by his earlier suspicions, had become one of the strongest advocates for human-Etherian cooperation. The Academy wants to expand the exchange program, Amara said, turning to face her partner. Zaren's crystalline form had become so familiar to her now, its subtle patterns of light as readable as any human expression. They're saying the first human-Etherian hybrid technologies are revolutionizing everything from medicine to deep space exploration. And yet, Zaren's voice carried harmonics of gentle amusement, some still question how a human and an Etherian could fall in love. Amara smiled, reaching out to let her hand pass through Zaren's energy field. The resonance between them had only grown stronger with time, developing in ways that challenged both species' understanding of consciousness and connection. They moved to the observation deck, where the view had changed dramatically from a year ago. A massive structure was taking shape in the space between Earth and Etherian territories, the confluence, they called it, a symbol of their united future. The Void Weavers did us a favor, in a way, Amara mused, watching construction ships move like fireflies against the darkness. They thought our differences would destroy us, but instead, they taught us that love isn't bound by form or origin. Zaren completed her thought, its surface rippling with patterns that spoke of deep affection. That true connection transcends all barriers. The confluence would be more than just a space station. It would be the first true hybrid colony, designed to accommodate both species and facilitate the evolution of their relationship. Already, scientists were documenting unprecedented changes in both humans and Etherians who worked closely together, subtle adaptations that seemed to be drawing their species closer on a biological level. The Council has approved our proposal, Zaren said softly, its form brightening with excitement. We'll be the first to test the new hybrid living quarters. If successful, it could pave the way for more permanent bonds between our peoples. The news sent a thrill through Amara's heart. The quarters had been specially designed to allow sustained close proximity between humans and Etherians, with environmental systems that could support both species' needs. It was a step toward answering the question many had asked: how close could their species truly become? As they watched the construction together, a message arrived from Earth. The first human Etherian cultural center had opened in New Delhi, with thousands attending the ceremony. Similar centers were being planned in cities across Earth and Etherian worlds. Did you ever imagine, Amara asked, when we first met in the archives, that we'd end up here? Zaren's form shimmered with patterns that Amara had learned meant laughter. I knew from the first moment I saw you that something extraordinary was possible. Though perhaps even I didn't dream big enough. Their attention was drawn to a new light in the distance, a ship emerging from deep space. It carried the first graduates of the Joint Space Academy, young humans and Etherians trained together from the start. They would be the pioneers of this new age, venturing into the unknown with the strength of both civilizations. They'll find new challenges out there, Zaren observed. Perhaps even the Void Weavers again, or something worse. And they'll face it together, Amara replied confidently. Just like we did. As they stood watching the ship approach, their energy fields naturally intertwining, Amara reflected on their journey. What had begun as a diplomatic mission had become a revolution in what was possible when fear gave way to love, when differences became strengths rather than barriers. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of promise rather than danger. Somewhere out there, other civilizations might be watching, wondering about this unprecedented alliance. Let them watch, Amara thought. Let them see what becomes possible when love reaches beyond the stars. Zaren's form pulsed with patterns that matched her own feelings of hope and possibility. Together, they had helped write a new chapter in the story of both their species. But more importantly, they had proven that love, in all its forms, was truly universal. The future stretched before them, as vast and bright as the galaxy itself, full of possibilities that neither of their species had dreamed of before they found each other. And in that future, they would continue to light the way for others, showing that the greatest discoveries often begin with a single connection between two hearts, no matter how different they might seem.